Welcome to the Would You Like a Cup of Tea podcast in connection with the event Would You Like a Cup of Tea, which is all about dismantling prejudice and helping to form healing and human connections within our hearts and minds by creating a safe space for diverse voices to be heard. The project is dedicated to fostering empathy and social change through sharing lived experiences, creating a connection with authenticity amongst others, and more importantly within ourselves. You will hear a variety of live podcasts that have taken place on the night, as well as from others who have come to share their stories at a later date, whilst also sharing their thoughts around the event. I hope you enjoy. Thanks for listening.
Hello and good evening, everybody, and welcome to another session of Would You Like a Cup of Tea? Today's guest speaker is all the way from London. She is a spiritual counsellor. So thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Can you tell us your name and a bit about yourself?
Yes. So I'm Sharice and I'm from London. I always hate the question, who are you and what do you do? Because I feel like it's just labels and labels and labels and labels. And it's been a bit of a journey to throw away all of those labels and come to myself. But what do I do? I'm a spiritual counsellor and I'm a Reiki master teacher. And I largely support women to heal themselves, usually from trauma, help them come back to who they are underneath all of those labels, underneath all of the layers of things that they've been through. So that's pretty much it. It's not pretty much it. I'm also a mother and a writer. Creative.
Beautiful. So I hear what you're saying with the labels. I've gone the other way and I've chosen to live in mine.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like they're not necessarily necessary, but they can be, like, in terms of where society is so fast paced. Like, you can quickly get to know someone a little bit better if you kind of know what their labels are. What's your perspective?
It's interesting. Do you know what? It's a tussle. Like I said, I think I spent a long time not wanting the labels, rejecting them, because I didn't want to be confined to a box. It felt like labels meant I was in a box, and I think I'm a trauma survivor, so being in a box has always felt really restrictive and oppressive, actually. So I think I really get your needing them because some of them are really useful. I think they are useful in society and helping people to identify you, but they aren't all of you.
Yeah, exactly.
They're not all of you.
Which label have you felt the most oppressed by?
Mother.
Because
didn't know that was going to come up with that, but here we are.
Yeah.
Do you know what? I think mother it feels so loaded and so, don't get me wrong, I love being a mum. It's the most sacred, actually, job in the world, and being a mum has been like such a gateway to coming to finding myself and really connecting to what it means to love, what it means to really love unconditionally. And but through my journey of motherhood, I've again had to deconstruct what it meant, because I feel like being a mum is so loaded with all of these responsibilities and all of these ideas of who we're supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I just. What's the question? What was the question again?
Which label?
Which label?
Have
Yeah.
you felt the most suppressed by?
I feel like I've had to really find my way with that one.
Mm.
I think again, it's been a journey of defining it for me.
Do you feel
defining motherhood and not being the picture of the juggling mother with 8 hands and she's doing this, you know.
Yeah. But do you feel like experiencing trauma has impacted that?
Absolutely. I think my experiences of a lack of a mother figure have, on one hand, it pushed me to be all of the mother that I thought I was supposed to be, and then that's the journey of defining it for myself. But when I look at society, when I look at, dare I say, patriarchy and what defines motherhood, yeah, I feel like there's just a lot.
And what defines motherhood? Surely that's a personal thing, isn't it? Yeah. But
I think it is.
I hear what you're saying though. I feel I struggled, like you. I have a trauma background. My mum, in some occasions, was present but not. And there was many times where she just wasn't present at all because I didn't always live with her. And then again, the motherhood journey, I started off being the mum that I thought I was supposed to be, and then changed to not really having a clue and just doing stuff. And then when I healed, then it all changed again. But I feel like it's kind of left my children a bit stuck. They're having to get to really know me all over again. And I feel like in each stage, they've not been able to know who I am. Hello, are you here for Would You Like a Cup of Tea?
No, I was looking for the bachata on the kizumba.
Oh. Sorry, I can't help you with that one, but you're more than welcome to join us.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, so I've been different mums, I think, throughout different stages. What would you say?
Wow, I really hear that. I think so. I've got 2 children. My oldest is 14, and my son is 14. My daughter is 9, and the birth of my 14-year-old was the birth of me in many ways, and I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't. But I was also exposed to love, like I sort of said earlier. This idea of loving somebody, and it completely triggered a journey in myself, because it was like, oh my god, I didn't experience this. So it was like the undoing of me. So it meant that his early years were very much occupied by my healing journey.
Yeah.
So then by the time my daughter came, there was much more of a presence in me. So the impact now I'm seeing, at 14, we're working through repairing some of that.
Yeah.
Because my daughter has had what he didn't.
Right. And has that caused resentment?
Not at all. Because I think I've tried. Well, I've done my best to share what I can and be open. And communication is something that I really hold strongly in the home. To share feelings and no questions off the table.
Yeah.
So I think that's really helped build gaps where there were some.
Okay.
And also, I guess community, like having community to support my children through things that I haven't been able to be there for. So I feel like we've been able to bridge the gap on some of the impact, for sure.
Okay, that's really good, and it's good to hear that you have a community that's been able to help you with that. Where did you start in trying to be able to heal and bond your family all at the same time?
Where did I start? That is a really good question. I think had you asked me that question pre-2020, I would have said it has been since I birthed my children, since I birthed my children. But 2020, I had such a traumatic experience that completely shattered my foundation. It shattered everything that I built, and it meant that I had to really look at everything,
Yeah.
and I feel like that was the beginning, like rebuilding the life as I, you know, yeah, rebuilding our lives was the coming together. That was like the first time we were actually coming together as a unit. Yeah.
So that was a time when everybody was actually having to, I'm not going to use the words, but everyone was having to shut off and be at home a lot. So do you feel like that helped you?
It felt like a blessing in many ways. It did feel like a blessing in many ways, but yeah, mm, maybe I'm not sure. I think I was very much in the story of catastrophe and chaos, and being at home at the time, it was isolating like everybody else, So I think there was an element of, am I the only person going through this?
Yeah.
Is this just me?
And of course, as well, because like for parents during that time, it wasn't just about just being at home. Suddenly, we had our own emotions to deal with 24/7, along with our children's emotions to deal with 24/7, on top of those who were working from home doing work, whilst also trying to teach their children education that is no longer taught in the same way that we were taught. Like there was so much unpacking to do with just that alone, with the added stress of everybody, a majority of the population, I feel, being high functioning adults, and anyone like, so like I'm 43, anyone like my generation or above, mainly really, they've all suffered traumas, but all of the support that we get now wasn't there for them. You still had to go to school, you still had to go to college, you still had to go to uni, you still had to, so they learn actually, whilst I'm always busy, whilst I'm always working, I don't have to worry about anything else because all the other stresses are like filling, well, not even filling, they're pushing everything to the side. And then they wondered why there was a rise in mental health during that time frame. And that's obviously why.
Yeah, I think it forced everybody to slow down and be with all the things that fast-paced living doesn't allow you to look at. And that it has a shock value. Absolutely, it's shocking to see some of the things that maybe were suppressed or overlooked, and to have to face that. But I think, in a way, there was a lot of reconnection to self and healing that happened. And that I think is amazing.
Yeah, and that was that time for me. Like I became medically retired during that time because of fibromyalgia, and then I had to have a cancer operation. But then from after like recovering, kind of like from the operation, not the fibromyalgia, because obviously that's a long-term thing. Yeah, like I felt like I had really changed and healed and worked through everything and like kind of like stepped in my power. And I had a call from my brother, and he was like, "You do realise like you've broken the pattern of like the family pattern." And I was like, to know it and hear it is two different things, and even that I had to sit and process, like, and look where I am now. So, and you're a spiritual counsellor, so you must hear lots of stories like this.
All the time. I think that's what a lot of people are doing, and they don't know they're doing it. It's breaking those generational patterns, and I didn't know that's what I was doing. I just was like, something doesn't feel right for me. and this is, I'm doing something different, or challenging norms, and yeah, I think there's something about being the black sheep of the family. I think there's something about being different and questioning that's not allowed in family systems. And quite often, the women that I work with have been the black sheep, have been cast out in some way because they're questioning things, and they inevitably are the cycle breakers.
Yeah, that's usually where it goes. And that, like a general podcast that I do, and like outside of this, one person said to me before, "Don't you feel like the black community had a good community spirit?" And I was like, "There's a difference between having community spirit and being there for your community." Like, and I kind of feel like if you was ready to go to, so back in our time, it was the Central Club. If he was ready to go and shake 2 foot down at Central and, and have a, it was all fine then, but no one was allowed to talk about their business. Everything was swept under the carpet. Everything was kept private. So you weren't really being supported.
I fully agree with that. And what came to me as you were speaking was the idea of shame and shame being pretty much the pandemic in this society, but in the black community actually. I come from a line of strong black women, and the idea is that nobody don't know your business. But what it meant is that I watched, my grandmother be this woman who didn't have any needs, and I actually wrote a blog about this because in rebuilding my own foundation and going through pretty much surrendering the idea of the strong black woman, by my nan not having any needs and by her not expressing that she needed help and support, I was fighting myself. I learned that I too shouldn't have any needs, and I too didn't know how to receive help from my community. I didn't even know really what it meant to have a community actually, because I was an island and trying to do it all myself, and I'd witnessed women who came before me do the same, and that was actually damaging my mental health. That was actually causing my causing pain and discomfort in my life, and I like to think that in what I'm bringing for my children, there's a repair of that idea that to be strong means to have no needs, and actually we're building emotional resilience. It's not really about being strong and managing and bearing burdens and doing it all on your own.
Yeah, and really there's strength in vulnerability, and for me, like, I usually find like relatable cycles, and I find that this to me is like with men who are not allowed to cry. They're brought up not to do that, and it's the same when you're taught to be a strong, independent woman. You're not what you're crying for. You're not allowed to have any of that emotion because you've got to be strong.
I remember my son was about 5, and I was going through a hard time with my partner, and it wasn't even just that, it was just the world was crashing and I was having a bad time. And I was in my room crying, and my son came in, and I don't think he'd ever seen me so distraught, and it was such a pivotal moment because in that moment I could have swept it under the rug and said everything's fine, or dried my tear, but I just let him know that I was feeling sad, and it just felt like such a moment because in that he was witnessing emotion. The reality is that we go through things and we are emotional beings, and we have a spectrum of emotions, and I want my son and my daughter, of course, but to know that it's okay, that it's valid, and that yes, express them. There's no hiding, there's no shame, and you deserve love regardless.
Yeah, exactly that. So no matter what sex you are, no matter who you identify as, you are allowed to have feelings and feel them and express them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. 'Cause I think that narrative is strong, isn't it?
Mm.
You know, and I guess that's something that I witness with my clients too, is the journey to like really surrender and be with um, the complexities of what it means to be human, to be in the rawness of their pain, because it takes a while to really be honest about how hard life is. Like to really be honest that you don't have a fucking clue, excuse my language. You don't know what you're doing.
Yeah.
And hell, you might have messed up, you know, you might have been acting through some traumas and, you know, maybe you don't even want to see yourself. But I witness women, you know, and I guess I can see it because I also went through it, but holding on to this idea of needing to be strong and the fear that if they allow themselves to cry, they may not survive. Like the world is going to fall apart. I feel like it's like such a fear.
Sorry, hitting the nerve.
Sorry.
It's fine. And that is me.
What's the nerve?
So for me, it's like if I'm crying, it's like it's really done, and I feel like if you've seen me cry, something real serious has happened. But to just cry, I don't know, on a general, I guess I feel like if I start, I won't stop. So I find it fascinating when I see other people crying because I'm like, wow, how do you do that? Like, I mean, I'm fine. I have my own ways of coping and managing. Like, it's not like consuming me. It's not. It's just not what I do.
I love that you say it's not what you do, but there is an awareness that you fear it. So yeah, it makes sense that it's not what you do because you don't want to go there. But it's like, what is the fear?
I don't know it. So through, I'll say this, I'm sure you already know, but honestly, like our parents, if they've experienced trauma, when they're carrying us, we're feeling their trauma as they carry us. I was born into trauma. I've lived trauma free for like 7 years, so I don't know anything but. So I know how to dissociate really, really well and to switch off and cut off and just be like, well, I'm not even really here. Like, so I guess where I reached the point of, I mean, surely I must have cried at times, but where it obviously made no difference to the situation, I just learned to just disassociate. And so that's where I go to first.
Okay.
It's a natural thing for me, yeah.
Do you feel it in your body? Do you notice a feeling in your body when you when you're about to dissociate?
It depends on the situation, I think. Yeah. Yeah, I think if something immediately was to happen, and I would just jump into whatever action needs to be taken. Like in a stressful situation, everyone looks to me, and I do everything that needs to be done, and then afterwards, maybe like a couple of weeks later, a couple of months later, then I'll start to process. Yeah, and then I'll be able to identify what I experienced in that moment.
Yeah. Hindsight is a beautiful thing. Hearing that. Yeah.
So what's the difference between spiritual counselling and counselling?
Well, I was actually going to just comment on just what you said there about, because it ties in really on the idea of disassociating and why I asked about if you have a feeling in your body and if maybe you notice, it was quite a grand question to ask if you already know that you disassociate. However, our body's talking to us all the time. And one of the things that has been not so helpful after a point is the intellectual process of understanding my trauma and getting to know, okay, I do this because of this, and this is how I behave, and these are my patterns. Because it has very much kept me in my head. It's kept me in this cognitive processing, but not in my body. And so spiritual counselling is a combination of talking therapy and energy healing. But really, it's looking at how your thoughts and emotions affect your physical body. And what has been profound to me is how how you move from the understanding of what you're doing to feeling it in your actual physical body. And that's a practice, because when you've suffered trauma, it's not safe to be in your body. You know, the disassociation is literally because there is a need to survive, and then your body is not placed, it doesn't feel safe. So we leave mentally, and we're disconnected from our bodily sensations. But there is so much wisdom in the body, there's so much wisdom in our senses, letting us know what's going on all the time. And I think there's something about the sort of intellectualizing that can interpret the messages differently. So what I support people to do is to bring their presence back to their body. And one of the things that happens in doing that is you become more embodied in yourself. You become more trusting of your senses, of what it means to be in connection with other people, and you get to know yourself more deeply. And that, you know, it's a journey, because, like I said, when you've suffered trauma, when you've experienced trauma, and you've been impacted by various things, you don't want to be here. And we do that by leaving. And along the way, what happens also, as we're growing up, depending on what we experience, we can lose parts of ourselves. You know, we can splinter or fracture off, you know, or fragment. We can sort of soul fragments. So through the connecting to the body, you reclaim parts of it. You reclaim and integrate parts of yourself. So it's almost like as a journey of self-actualization, self-realization. But it's like really getting to know you again. Like, who are you? Who are you underneath all of what you've been through?
Yes.
Yeah. Did that answer your question? I feel like I got a bit of a coffee hit. Got a bit spaced out. And I was like, ooh. I answered the question.
You did. Yeah, you did. And I like the part about the intellectualization, because I'm very good at that. I've been told by a therapist I once had. And like earlier you were saying about your labels boxing you in, and I'm very good at compartmentalizing and putting everything in its own little box in my brain. And
yeah, and I imagine that helps you to feel a sense of safety. And you know, it's a way to cope. It's a way to cope with life. And I think, if that works for you, it works for you until it doesn't.
Yeah,
you know, until it becomes something that is not that's upsetting you internally. Then you have what you have. You know, we need them. You know, we call them coping mechanisms, and we need them. We need them. They're helpful. They're useful. Like I said, until they're not.
Well, yeah, exactly. And so that's the process that I've been going through, and this is why I like to host events like this and go and speak at places, because like the awareness of self can sometimes be found by connecting with other people.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. I love how you said that the awareness of self can be found through other people. I really believe that people reflect. You know, they can be mirrors in many ways, and when we can be in connection, then we can get to see that there is a oneness in all of us. And regardless of the experiences, there is an interconnectedness, you know, and I think we have a human need to connect. And in the day and age of technology and social media, it can be very easy to not, you know, and to use, you know, the intellectualizing to stay out of connection.
So, but you also do Reiki. So, what is? You want to?
Reiki is.
Do you do these things at the same time?
I can do.
Okay.
So Reiki is an energy healing, a form of energy healing. It's one of the modalities that I use. It's one that I teach as well. And where do I start with the energy healing? So my belief is that we are not just human beings; we're spiritual beings, you know, and we have many layers. And I'm very much passionate about holistic well-being. So as much as I work with the mind, work with the body, I also work with the spirit and energy. So I've found through my own healing journey that there are aspects that are also held in my energy that impact us, you know, and we're not taught to clear them. We're not taught to understand what our aura is or how we hold generational pain, how we hold our ancestors' pain, and how pain unprocessed can just be lingering and cause physical ailments too. What was I going to say?
Because you used the word aura, but most people would connect that with being a clairvoyant, being psychic. Are you in those realms?
I am.
Or you are?
I am.
Okay.
Yes, I am also a medium. So I also connect with the spirit realm, and I connect with ancestors, guides.
So does that help with the Reiki side of things? Or
That is a bonus to the Reiki side of things. That is a bonus. It means that I can receive messages specifically for the person that I'm working with. Some people want it, some people don't, some people just want the Reiki. But yeah, it's part and parcel of the healing.
so what do you do with the messages that you get for the people who don't want them?
I don't give it to them. They don't want them.
Just
I
sit
always
with it.
ask, because I think, you know, I get them, and my job, my role is to share them. But if people are not willing, it's not my job to force somebody. I'm you know respecting of people's wishes and boundaries. So I'm not gonna share a message if it's not.
Usually I wait till the end for questions, but I saw someone's hand go up.
Hi.
Hold on, let me come to you with the mic.
Sorry, I feel like I'm not even looking at you guys. I forgot you was here for a minute.
Sorry, thank you. So I was just, I'm always a bit concerned when I hear medium, etc. Only because I think I've been brought up that it's not something that you mess with. But that wasn't what got to me. What got to me was you receive a message. So how do you just say, "Oh, I've received a message. Do you want it or not?" How do you? Because aren't you almost like tempting fate by telling them that you've received a message?
How it's been so far, it's a really good question, thank you, is most of my clients are open to receiving insight or a message. So in a Reiki healing, it's not a message, it's more an understanding of what's happening in their energy that I'm relaying. So that's different. In a mediumship reading, then that would be something that somebody's come for. So maybe I wasn't very clear on differentiating between what I do. In a energy healing, it's more about interpreting what's happening in the energy, in the body, and relaying that. Quite often, there are things that come up that the client may be quite surprised that I would know or that I would sense or be aware of. Is that? Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
At this point, does anyone else have any any questions? No? Okay. So you are a creative, you said that earlier. What other creative aspects do you have?
So I write poetry. My poetry is very much about the journey to myself. I really describe healing as the journey home to me, because it feels like it has been a constant coming back to myself. When I think about who I am now, I'm like, oh my God, this has always been me. I've just been taught to reject these parts. I've just been taught that these parts are unlovable and or they're too much, or so. Yeah, that my poetry is very much about what it means to feel, what it means to be, and the complexities of that.
And so I follow you on Instagram and your business under Soul Deep Wellness. Do you incorporate that into some of the workshops that you do? I've seen you incorporate the writing.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. So I do run workshops. I also run courses. So the poetry. So what I find is that words are so powerful. But when I say powerful, words hold an energy in themselves. And what I find is with the right combination of words, they can impart feeling. They can have resonance, make people cry, make people laugh. But more than that, they can be really profoundly healing. And sometimes my poetry has helped people to really connect to themselves in a deeper way. So I might use it in ceremonies or journaling workshops as a way to connect with the self. Beautiful. I love writing. You do writing? I know you do. I love your writing too.
Thank you. Anything else you do?
I probably forget something. So I'm not very well practiced at talking about what I do. I just do it, and this is a really, really great opportunity. So I'm really thanking you actually, because it's like also an opportunity to see myself, to hear myself, to see sort of how far I've come, but also talk about business. Business is it's been such a challenging thing to be with, as somebody who is probably one of the only ones actually in my family that has stepped out and took the risk to do what I love and live by it, live doing it. So what else do I do? I think that's it. I do therapy, so I do one-to-one. I'm a group facilitator as well. So I work with women's charities, with women who are impacted by domestic violence, substance misuse, and it's all about personal development, self-awareness, because we need to have self-awareness to impart change in our lives, you know? It's all healing and well-being stuff. So I feel like in order to make change and to have a life where we can consciously participate and not be driven by our wounds, because we're more than that. We can live a life that's more empowered and we can experience more joy.
Yeah. Did you bring any poetry to share?
Do you know what? I did. I did.
Would you like to share?
Do you know what? I will. So okay. I'm going to share. So I've got two pieces. They're pretty old, but they feel important. So one is called Shadow Illuminated. And when I talk about the shadow, I talk about the parts of the self that get suppressed, the parts that we call ugly, the parts that we're ashamed of, the parts that we don't want to admit exist. And it's called Shadow Illuminated because it was a moment that I felt really confronted with my pain And I remember writing. So writing. I mean, I've been writing since I was a child. But it's like it's the way that I connect with myself, the way that I release, the way that I process. And I really noticed my resistance to write in that moment. But it felt important, and I almost grew up writing. But it was because it was like being confronted with those parts of myself, but they needed to be seen. And I said earlier about shame being a pandemic, and I believe that the remedy of shame is to be seen, is to witness it. So I'm going to share this poem because it feels like, why not? I don't know. It was just one that I chose, so I'm going to go with it. So, shadow illuminated. Sometimes the darkness consumes me and makes me wander into realms to confuse me. I can't help but wonder if I'll lose me or if I'll be able to sustain the strength to keep choosing me. Like, what if I never feel comfortable not being abused? Used? What if I never feel joy in my peace? What if I never feel love for another or allow myself to be loved? Like, what if I was just the observer of other people's dreams? The bystander, the passerby, the prop in the room to aid in another's evolution, but my evolution was not evolving. Like, what if I never evolve? Change. What if change is just too profound to ever realize? They say to have faith and believe, but what if I don't believe my own eyes? What if I'm destined to be on the floor where it's always felt safe, never needing more? What if I never believed that my life could be beautiful? What if I never moved past my own limitations? What then? Do I just continue riding the ghost train, continue to be the prop propping up other people, the carpet where they rub out their traumas? My coat is durable, weatherproof, resilient. What if I never see my worth? What if I never see the truth? What if I am this and that is that? Like, what if I don't believe that love could set me free? What if I just continue to trust my doubt, vowing to recreate drama and conflict and stay living in survival? What if the free world was never meant for me in the first place? I just stay riding the shadows like waves, shadow reflector. What if that is my purpose? What if the hard work never stops? What if there really were no days off? What if the wounding was true, the brokenness beyond repair, unworthy of replacing? What if I couldn't see, be? What if this is truly it? What if this is my role? To be the bearer of violations so as to save another soul? What if I am the buffer for those that suffer, the shield skilled at absorbing pain on impact? What if this prison was my own creation, skillfully built for me to live within, or break free of like some sick jokes on me? What if I just let it all go? Surrender these thoughts on these pages and see what happens. But remembering that I trust my doubt more than faith. Trust in the darkness over the light. What is light? What if there really was no light? If it was just darkness, masquerading as light? What if that is me? Darkness, masquerading as light.
So you said that was an old one. Do you
Yes.
feel different now in comparison to what you read?
So different, so different. I really just tried to allow myself to be guided with what to choose, and I was going to talk about some other stuff earlier, and it was sort of following parts that I was going to share that I didn't share, which is fine. And I think I really needed to read that again out loud. I haven't shared this poem in a while, and it feels. I feel really proud of myself. Actually, I feel really proud that I don't have those thoughts or feelings about myself anymore. That feels really good.
Great. Ready for the next one?
Thanks. So, okay. So I said I like to go with what I brought, but I'm gonna shift it. So I'm not gonna read this one. I'm gonna share another one. No, I'm not gonna read this one. So yeah, so this one is called emptiness, and maybe I'll talk about it after I read it. Actually,
Yeah.
I'm just gonna read it.
Yeah.
I spent so long healing from my life. It hasn't been safe to be me. Tears fall as I release all I've had to be, all I've had to be and do to survive. Did I know what I would become? Did I know what I would have to endure to become? Did I know what I would have to excavate to become? As I come into being me, I wonder how to fill the holes that are left behind by the excavation. I wonder how to fill me, what to fill me. When all I've had to be no longer survives, what's left but debris? Mounds of what is no longer required, new soil needed. I am being repotted. Ah, I see it now. I am the gold mined by my own bare hands. I found me, buried underneath the soils of my ancestors' tears and fears, the contaminated soils of old memories. Wars were fought here, battles lost and won. Find me in the battlefield of lost hopes and dreams. Battles lost and won, wars were fought here, the contaminated soils of old memories, buried underneath the soils of my ancestors' tears and fears. I found me. I am the gold mined by my own bare hands. I see it now. I am being repotted. These soils no longer nourish me, are no longer fertile for growth to occur. You see, whilst I was mining myself, I was also remineralizing my soils. The roots of me are ready for new foundations. I've been in the shadows for too long. I need more light. Connecting to the emptiness that I'm left with today, all that I have excavated in order to reach me. On this day of my birth is also a death of an old me. I'm empty of responsibility, empty of others' expectations, empty of baggage that does not belong to me. I must remember that emptiness is not aloneness. I am reminded that this is my gift. Today I am gifted emptiness, the space to feel my own emptiness and the opportunity to fill myself with my own love. I don't really know how to do that. I don't think I've ever really known how to do that. So here it is. Today, a birth of a new, clear me, unburdened, emptied of all that wasn't of me.
And thank you for sharing. I related to them both very well.
Thank you.
You said you were gonna.
Oh yes,
Talk about that
yes. So this was written on one of my birthdays, and I was on my own, and I connected to this sense of loneliness, but it wasn't loneliness. It was the fact that I had created so much space from all of the healing work that I'd done that I didn't really know what to do with it. And the thing about being an island and being responsible for everybody and being the strong one and being so resilient that you can handle everything is that you end up taking responsibility for things that are not yours and that don't belong to you, and you begin to notice just how much of your life you fill with other people. And yeah, I spent a long time changing that. I spent a long time really changing that, really making space, and I didn't realise that I was feeling the spaciousness of me. It wasn't really loneliness.
Yeah.
And that felt profound to me once I'd moved through some of the grief. It felt really profound because I never had that much space, and it's like, okay, now I get to utilize it how I want to. You know, I don't have to. I don't have to burden myself with what doesn't belong to me anymore. I can choose. I can choose how to fill this space and to fill it with me. I mean, like, what is that? So, it was like a birth. It was such a, it was a really quite profound moment.
Sounds amazing. Earlier you said that there were some things that you didn't talk about that you thought you might. Now's an opportunity if you'd like to share. But you obviously you don't have to.
No, I think I feel like that's it. I feel like that's it. I'm really glad to be here.
Thank you.
I feel like it's such a aligned opportunity. I know I said it a bit earlier, you know, there's something about sharing stories, but it's more about being witnessed and witnessing other people. Being witnessed saved my life many, many times.
Yeah.
And I think creating an event like this, I imagine, is helping people, is saving lives, you know. And I actually reached out to Nyasha a few months back when I first saw this event, and I was like, oh my God, is this in London? She was like, no, it's not. And I couldn't attend that one. And I was like, if it's in London, I was like, if it's in London, I'm coming. But it reminded me of, years ago, there was this thing that I saw called the Human Library. I don't know if you heard of that. And when I discovered that, I'd missed it, it was already over. And I was like, oh, it was the most brilliant. I thought just the most I love people. I love hearing stories, sharing stories. So it just felt really aligned with my, my beliefs and values about what it means to be human, to connect and to belong. So I think this is really powerful, really powerful. So thank you for having me.
And thank you for coming. Does anyone have any questions before we wrap up? Yeah.
So this is going to sound a little complicated because I'm still trying to sort of work out what to say in my mind.
Okay.
But with trauma, do you ever feel that you are totally healed from it? And this is a question for both of you. Or do you think it's one of those phenomena that comes and goes, depending on triggers that you might get? And do you ever find when you're sort of working with people and in their healing that somehow that makes you revisit or trigger your own trauma?
Okay.
Does that make sense?
So it does make sense. So I feel like there was 2 questions in there. Okay. So the first question about ever really being healed, I think that's a bit of a myth in a way. You know, I think when I use the term healed, it's very much that I've arrived at a point where my experiences don't control my life, and I think that for me feels healed. That for me feels healed enough that I can now live. I have lived most of my life out of my body, not connected. My feet haven't been on the ground. I've been very much in survival and fleeing or running from something. So the healing part, or the healed part, is like my feet are on the ground. My nervous system knows that it's safe to be here. And there's an awareness of the impact from trauma, because trauma changes you. It changes your brain. It changes everything. Neurologically, physiologically, and I have learnt who I am, what trauma has done to me, and moving past the intellectualizing, can I love myself still? Can I love myself despite it? So, you know, being here with you, this is the first time that I've done something in this way, and I'm aware of my body. I'm aware of what's happening to me and how it feels to be here and how it feels to connect and relate. And you know, a couple of years ago, I would have been in anxiety. That would have been like high anxiety. I would have been hyper vigilant and on alert and what's going. I don't think I would be here, to be honest, like on this side of the table. So yes, I'm getting carried away. To answer your question, no, not yes, no. I don't think there is this. I think being fully healed in the way that I think you may mean it is a bit of a myth. And your second question was about being triggered by my clients. So, the fascinating thing about being a therapist is that when I was training and when I was very new, I mean, I've been doing this for 5 years, and in my first year, I was very much under the belief that I had to be the expert. I had to have all the answers. And one of my teachers said to me, you know, you're only ever really one step ahead of your clients. Like, you haven't figured it all out. And I found that to be so true. I found that, one, I cannot bring my clients where I'm not willing to go myself. And I have to be really honest about that with myself. Yes, I have been triggered with my clients, and thank God I have therapy and supervision so that I can be in my integrity about that. Yeah, I have, absolutely. But like I said, for me, you know, integrity is really important. So for me to make sure that I'm doing what I need to do, it means that I can take care of the triggers and also support my client. Yeah, that answer your question? Thank you.
And my response is I pretty much second everything you said for like the first question. Like, we can all be in search of this grand master person that we feel like we're going to be after we've healed, but a lot of healing is also learning to accept the parts of you that will always be that way. So like for me, I have complex post-traumatic stress disorder. That's not as easy to keep control of as post-traumatic stress disorder. Like, I can know that going somewhere is going to trigger me and just don't go there. But sometimes, you know, I don't know if someone's going to say a word or if I'm going to smell a smell, and this is where the complex hits you in the complex post-traumatic stress disorder. I don't ever know if that's going to happen, so I can avoid as many places as I want, but I can't control everything that's going on around me and outside of me. So, but I'm aware, and like what you were saying about anxiety, like maybe you wouldn't be here with the anxiety, but for me, like I think I've said this before as well, like even though it's kind of like a trauma response for me, I think like I must have had anxiety as a child. You know, when you're told to do something but you don't really want to do it, but then you end up doing it anyway. Like, that's how I manage my anxiety. So it's been like a blessing and a curse, so like all at the same time, and being hypervigilant and stuff like that. That stuff for me, that's always there. The difference now is that I know what it is, I understand it, and that's how I manage it, and that's how. So I feel like I'm healed in two different ways. But yeah, I guess so. Those bits where you're saying, "Oh, like it's a bit of a myth." So those bits I think are the myth bits. Like, you don't ever get rid of those bits. You just learn how to work with them. And what the second question was?
Being triggered by clients.
Oh, I think I can be, but I'm good at masking, and so I will generally just get on with whatever I'm doing in the moment and deal with myself after. I think one thing that I've learned this year is also to be able to know when I'm not ready to be in a space, because you can be as healed as you like, and you can then meet people who trigger you in ways that you don't expect to be triggered. So I think one of my previous experiences is that, like, people are amazed at how I can be where I am after everything I've been through. I'm amazed too. But then people still feel the need to kind of go out of their way to be like, well, no, you're too good to be true, so let me try to take you down, like, a bit at a time. And if you're not careful, you can get swamped and absorbed in that and lose yourself again, like, before you know it. But because of a lot of the things that I've taught myself and actively, like, took on from healing and learning and stuff like that, I know how to fix it. So it's all good. Yeah.
I'd like to know, so when you're at your absolute lowest, or you've been at your absolute lowest, what is it that's really helped you to pull through? Like, is there something within yourself that you've done, or that you tell yourself, or, you know, have you got a go-to strategy for getting yourself through the most difficult times, or has it changed?
Yeah, that's a really, really good question. Thank you. So when I'm at my lowest, so my lowest has definitely changed. It's definitely changed over time. I think. Let me think for a minute. What do I do? No, it's good. Don't be sorry. This is really helpful because it's also helping me to reflect on, actually, what do I do? You know, sometimes you could just do what you do, and you're like, actually, what do I do? How do I survive? How do I get here? Yeah, and actually, I'm thinking, and I'm like, you know, at which low point do I respond to is also what I'm thinking in my mind. Because at the moment, my low point is tended to with real compassion and care. And it's like, I can go to myself, what do I need? And maybe I need to speak to somebody. Whereas before, my low point was isolation. And I didn't know how to love myself through that. It was very much, don't let nobody see me. No one knew that I was low. No one knew that I was even suicidal. You know, it was very much behind closed doors until I could fix myself up and come out and go, you know, people very much miss the dark periods. And so my go-to will always be writing. That's my process. It's where I can be my most raw and honest. I feel like the low point needs to be seen. It needs to be witnessed, and it needs to be really loved and being handled with care and tenderness. So my advice would be: is there somebody that you can be your rawest self with, and be be honest? Like, you don't have to filter or mask anything with, because sometimes, you know, you're not resourced enough to hold yourself through. You need somebody to hold you, and if you've got somebody you can do that with, I think that's enough. Yeah, does that answer the question?
Yeah, see now, whereas for me, I prefer the isolation, because I feel like if I'd have isolated through that example I gave earlier, I wouldn't have been that person who wouldn't have had the opportunity to have me where they had me. And I think I switch off, I go mute, I shut down. I think at one point my kids were enough, and I remember having one occasion where they didn't feel enough, and that was scary. It was the first time I'd actually planned and, like, had a thought process in my mind of what I was going to actually do. Um, and I did, like, and I feel like when I have isolated, people you don't tend to look for me, so it's fine. I'm given that space to kind of get on with it, which is really weird because at the time, whilst I can be grateful for it, sometimes afterwards I'm like, well, where were you? Like, even even though I probably didn't want them to call me, I didn't want anyone because I needed that time to be by myself, to be with my thoughts, be with that process. It's enough when you're a single parent and you're having to be with all the people that you've created and try to manage them and nurture them and their needs without having the outside disturbances of everybody else. And again, like you writing the tears on my page, that like the words are my tears on paper. So yeah, writing and isolation. Yeah.
Everybody has their own process, though, don't they? It's like what I say to people when I speak to them, and they're like, "Oh, what do you do? What works for you isn't necessarily going to work for somebody else."
Yeah.
Take a bit from here, a bit from here, and you make your own recipe. What what works, right?
It's definitely got to find what it is for you. You know.
Yeah. I always recommend writing now.
Yeah. But I think one of my battles has been the fact that since healing, I don't always recognise my depression, and it's because it's never as heavy as what I've known it to be. So then it's like, well, what is going on?
How do you know it's depression?
I guess it's a process of elimination. Once I realise it's not this, it's not that. That's for me. I mean, what else could it be?
No, I just wondered. So you said it's it's fascinating. You know why? Okay, so I said earlier, you know, I'm a trauma survivor, and that's like, you know, complex trauma is a whole rewiring of your whole system, right? And what I found the most fascinating coming back, sorry, yeah, I don't know if I should name the traumas or what, I don't know.
Yeah,
but
go for it.
It's like,
yeah.
I don't know if it makes a
If
difference,
you're comfortable to, yeah.
but I think there's different levels of trauma, isn't there? So, yeah, so domestic violence, rape, molestation, addiction, abandonment, neglect, all of those things, to be fair. But it's meant that I haven't known, but like I thought excitement was anxiety. Like I couldn't differentiate between my emotions. I was so desensitized to them, you know, in a way.
Yeah.
But also I'd become so familiar with depression that I thought disappointment and sadness was depression. Do you know what I mean? So my question was just, how did you know? Yeah. What you said made me think, how did you know it was depression? Was it depression?
Yeah.
You know, because it's like when you get to know.
Right, now this is not something that you'll be used to seeing at the end of checking my mic still on. After one of my Would You Like a Cup of Tea podcast in particular, but this evening we got so much conversation in the time that we had. I do have like over an hour's worth, so I just wanted to honour the parts that we missed because my storage was full, and unfortunately I didn't see it in good time. So and I didn't really want to interrupt the level of depth of conversation that we were in with the audience also. So yeah, I just let it be and thought I'd catch up from here. I did explain to Charisse that the process that I went through of learning to detect that it was depression that I was sat in is because of the process that I had to go through to learn about positive feelings and emotions. I never had any. I never felt them, and it was more scary to me to deal with positive feelings than it was the bad ones, I suppose, or the numbness, because it was more what I knew anyway. So one set of therapy I had was called psychodynamic therapy, and during that therapy I had to find out what all the positive emotions were, get to know them, understand the meaning behind them, to know when they were within me, when they had arisen within me, and then I had to learn to identify what it was I was feeling, and then also sit with that until feeling positive things became normal to me. And you know, like Sharice made a point about anxiety, like for me, learning the difference between being nervous and anxious, you know, those are the places that you get to when you learn about all of the emotions that there are, rather than just the ones that you're used to, really. Yeah, and then so after that, Sharice went on to honour my progress and my journey, and the outcome of that, and where we're at. The conversation continued way beyond the time that we were given, but everybody who was there was thankful for that, and the impact that these events are leaving on people is really emotional, and I'm glad, because it shows that I'm being successful in what I'm doing. At this point, there are 2 more Would You Like a Cup of Tea evenings left until we break in August. Well, what a very interesting and fascinating evening today has been for Would You Like a Cup of Tea. I've got just over an hour's worth of podcast to upload to my YouTube channel. Thank you so much, Sharice, for making the effort to come all the way down from London to share your story with us. Obviously, I really appreciate those who are local, but those of you who have put in that extra effort to come those extra few miles. So I am Shalina, is another one with her breath work, who came all the way down from Birmingham. You are all very much appreciated. Thank you for watching the Would You Like a Cup of Tea podcast, brought to you by My Voice in Power, Reading Biscuit Factory.